How can the humble CD case help us to save our declining hedgehog populations? Well, in this video, we'll explore something very simple that you can do that all starts with the CD case. So stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Hedgehog Hollow, the land here at the bottom of my garden. Hedgehog Hollow is the channel for people passionate about hedgehogs who want to attract them into their gardens and then support them once they're there. And if that sounds like you, then why don't you hit that subscribe button? And don't forget, also click the notification bell so that you get updated every time a new video is published. And if you've got people, friends, family that would be interested as well, why don't you share our URL with them and make sure that you spread the word about hedgehogs and looking after Britain's hedgehogs populations. At the end of July 2020, the Mammal Society published a report into the risk of extinction facing the mammals of Britain, Britain's first ever red list. And in it, it identified that 11 of Britain's 47 native mammal species faced imminent risk of extinction, and one of those was the hedgehog. The report notes that in the last 13 years alone, at least 46% of Britain's hedgehog population has disappeared, and it lists the primary reasons for these as road casualties and the loss of hedgehog habitation. And it estimates that currently Britain has a population of around 500,000 hedgehogs. So the question has to be, just why are we losing our hedgehog populations at such an alarming rate? And what, if anything, can we do about it? Well, the primary reason is that as we're expanding our neighborhoods and cities and building new residential areas, we are encroaching on natural hedgehog habitats. And the hedgehogs are therefore losing their habitats and their areas where they would naturally be. Sadly, Hedgehog Hollow is a prime example of exactly what is happening. Built on an old farm which borders greenbelt and farmland itself, this new build development and neighborhood is what would previously have been prime hedgehog habitat. Now it's new build development, and the population of hedgehogs has most likely declined. Even though we get them visiting the garden, the hedgehog population has distinctly taken a hit through this development. Houses in new build development such as this one are all built with fences and brick walls which form an impenetrable barrier at least to hedgehogs and their natural need for movement. It's a common fact that hedgehogs will roam 1 to even 3 or 4 miles per night. And when us humans start putting these fences and walls in their way, then we severely restrict their ability to roam and we reduce their natural habitat. And then finally, making the situation even worse, new build developments are delivered to new owners with very little in the way of garden. When we got this property, we were given 1 tree and roll-on lawn in the garden, and that was it. And if you want to have a look at exactly what it took and how long it took to convert that into the hedgehog haven we have at the moment, I will put a link in the video description below. It's well worth seeing the amount of effort that it takes to take a new build property and develop it into something that the hedgehogs can now find attractive and which can support that population. So that's the problem. What can we do? Well, fortunately, there is something that we can do, and that's where our humble CD case comes into play. Because what we can do is we can build hedgehog highways or hedgehog streets, which are essentially tunnels or holes in those fences and walls between our properties, which open up access to the hedgehogs and allow them to roam more freely and more naturally between the properties. So we're opening up the accesses for the hedgehogs between our properties. And all it takes is a hole the size of a CD case. It really is that simple. Create a hole in the fence or wall the size of the CD case. Now the CD case just provides the template, and if you're a regular viewer to this channel, you'll probably know that I mentioned that we've been using often and over when we talk about holes or passageways or tunnels for hedgehogs, we always talk about 15 by 15 centimeters. And that's roughly the size of our friend the Rhodesy case. By creating holes and tunnels through our fences, we allow access for the hedgehogs. It's the perfect size for the hedgehog to access through, and we open up and enlarge the natural area that the hedgehog can roam, and suddenly the spaces available to them become much larger, without us affecting our desire for security and for restriction to free flow of humans. We do allow the hedgehogs at least to roam into other gardens. Now, in fact, the idea of the Hedgehog Highway has taken off to such a degree that here in the UK there's been a petition running for the last few months that now has more than 960,000 signatures, and it calls on the government to make it a legal requirement on developers to, when they're building these new build developments, to make sure that they include hedgehog holes in the fences. So now we will get our developments pre-built with hedgehog highways, and we won't have the restrictive nature that comes with new build developments. If you want to, and you haven't yet, I'll put a link in the description below to the petition, and you can become one of those 960,000 people who have signed it, and hopefully we'll get up to 1 million signatures on that petition in no time at all. But now back to Hedgehog Hollow itself, and some truth and transparency. I've mentioned in videos before that the only access point that we actually have is a small hole under a side gate, and that we don't actually have any hedgehog highways ourselves. And this does bring up a point that it's worth noting. It's worth doing some due diligence before you start putting in hedgehog highways. Not only should you, of course, consult with your neighbors before you start hacking holes in your perimeter fences, but just check on the suitability of the gardens that you're allowing your hedgehog to roam into. So in my particular instance, I'm surrounded by gardens which either have dogs present, which are never a good idea, because they will potentially disturb hedgehog nests, they may harass hedgehogs, or at worst, they may actually attack and harm hedgehogs. And then the other reason in particular here is that due to the nature of the subsoil from our particular circumstance having previously been a farm, we've got a very, very poor soil. And so our neighbors have actually decided to rip up a lot of their lawns and replace it with either concrete or some kind of artificial lawn. And so actually these then don't create suitable habitats where we should be able to share with our hedgehogs. And so it's worth doing some due diligence up front, just to make sure that the properties that you are sharing and encouraging your hedgehogs to visit are appropriate for them, and that you're not actually just leading them down a tunnel that leads them to further danger. So then two things: make sure that you consult with your neighbors, of course, and do a little bit of due diligence into the suitability of the lawn or the garden that you're sharing with your hedgehog. If this video has been of value to you, then do be sure to give it a like, and consider sharing our linked URL to our channel with your friends or others who may find this interesting and who also share your passion for hedgehogs. And if you want to know more about what you can do in your garden to attract hedgehogs, then why don't you have a look at that video up there, where I go through a number of things very simply that you can do. Otherwise, if you want more information about supporting hedgehogs, then I've got a whole playlist here, and I'll see you there. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.